For more than 2,000 years, the Trojan War has been told as one of history's greatest stories. A face that launched 1,000 ships, a warrior said to be invincible, a giant wooden horse, and the fall of a legendary city. Millions know the names: Achilles, Hector, Helen, Agamemnon. But here's the question: how much of that story is actually history? Was there really a war at Troy? Did a wooden horse ever enter the city? Were the heroes real people, or unforgettable characters created by poets? Modern archaeology, ancient Hittite records, and decades of excavation have transformed what we know about the Trojan War. Some of history's most famous scenes may never have happened. Others may be far closer to reality than anyone expected. Tonight, Before we can separate history from legend, we must examine the evidence. Surprisingly, there is no single account that tells us exactly what happened. Instead, historians piece together the story from three very different sources. The first is Homer. His epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, preserved the most famous version of the Trojan War. But Homer wrote centuries after the events he described. His works blend memory, poetry, and mythology. The second source comes from archaeology. Excavations at Hisarlık in modern-day Turkey have uncovered multiple ancient cities built one above another. One of those layers shows signs of destruction during the Late Bronze Age. The third source is perhaps the most unexpected. Clay tablets from the Hittite Empire mention a kingdom called Wilusa and conflicts involving Western Anatolia. Many historians believe Wilusa may be the city later remembered as Troy. None of these sources tells the complete story, but together they provide enough evidence to reopen the case. One of the most common beliefs is that the Trojan War was completely fictional. For centuries, many scholars agreed. They believed Troy existed only in Homer's imagination. Then, archaeology changed the conversation. In the 19th century, excavations uncovered the ruins of a real Bronze Age city at Hisarlık. Further research revealed not one city, but several, built over thousands of years. One layer, known today as Troy 7A, shows evidence of destruction around the late 13th or early 12th century BC. Burned buildings, collapsed walls, and signs of conflict. Around the same period, Hittite records describe tensions involving Wilusa. These discoveries do not prove Homer's story. They do suggest that memories of a real conflict may have survived for centuries before becoming epic poetry. The evidence does not support the idea that the Trojan War happened exactly as Homer described.
But neither does it support the claim that it never happened at all.
Ask almost anyone about the Trojan War, and one image comes to mind. A giant wooden horse standing outside the walls of Troy. According to the legend, Greek soldiers hid inside. The Trojans pulled the horse into their city, and that single decision sealed their fate. It's one of history's most famous stories. But did it actually happen? Surprisingly, Homer never describes the fall of Troy in the Iliad. The wooden horse appears only in later Greek traditions, including the Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid. That alone doesn't prove it was invented, but it reminds us that the most famous scene of the Trojan War
comes from sources written long after the conflict itself. Historians have proposed several possibilities. Perhaps the horse was exactly what later writers described. Perhaps it represented a siege engine, capable of breaking through city gates. Others suggest it symbolized an earthquake, since the horse was sacred to Poseidon, the god also associated with earthquakes. Another possibility is that the horse was simply a powerful literary device, transforming a military deception into an unforgettable story. None of these explanations has been proven. No archaeological evidence confirms the existence of the horse. Yet no evidence completely rules out some form of deception during the city's final days. The horse remains one of history's greatest symbols. But symbols are not always literal history. The heroes of the Trojan War have become larger than life. Achilles, Hector, Agamemnon. Their names have survived for more than 3,000 years. But were they real people? Archaeology cannot confirm Achilles. No inscription bearing his name has ever been discovered. The same is true for Hector. Their stories may preserve memories of real warriors, but no direct evidence identifies them as historical individuals. Agamemnon presents a different case. Greek tradition describes him as the king of Mycenae. Archaeologists have uncovered an extraordinarily wealthy Bronze Age palace there, along with royal tombs filled with gold, weapons, and ceremonial objects. These discoveries do not prove Agamemnon existed. They do show that powerful kings ruled Mycenae during the late Bronze Age. Modern historians generally agree on one point. Homer's heroes may preserve echoes of real people, but the poems transformed them into legendary figures. Separating the individual from the legend is no longer possible. For centuries, many believed Troy existed only in poetry, a city imagined by Homer and preserved through legend alone. Then, in the 19th century, one man became determined to prove everyone wrong. His name was Heinrich Schliemann, a wealthy businessman with an obsession for Homer's writings. Most scholars dismissed the Iliad as mythology. Schliemann disagreed. He believed the ancient poems contained real geography, hidden beneath centuries of history. Following Homer's descriptions, he began excavating a hill called Hisarlık in modern-day Turkey. Wow! What he uncovered changed archaeology forever. Beneath the soil lay the remains of an ancient city. Then another, and another. Layer after layer, civilizations built upon civilizations. Today, archaeologists know that Hisarlık contains the remains of multiple Troys, spanning more than 3,000 years of history. But Schliemann's methods came at a cost. Working with 19th century techniques, he dug enormous trenches through the site. In doing so, he unintentionally destroyed valuable archaeological layers. He believed he had found Homer's Troy, but later research showed he had excavated the wrong level. Modern archaeologists continued the investigation. Careful excavation, scientific dating, and decades of research revealed that Troy 7A, dating to the late Bronze Age, is the strongest candidate for the city remembered in Greek tradition. The search did not end with Schliemann. It had only just begun. Every investigation eventually reaches the same moment. The evidence must speak for itself. We examined Homer's poems, archaeological discoveries, Hittite records, and centuries of research. Together, they reveal a very different picture from the legend most people know. The city of Troy was real. A major conflict during the Late Bronze Age is historically plausible. Hittite texts referring to Wilusa strengthen that possibility. But the evidence does not confirm every detail recorded by Homer. The wooden horse remains unproven. Achilles, Hector, and Helen cannot be verified as historical individuals. Their stories may preserve memories, transformed through centuries of oral tradition. The greatest surprise is not that Homer exaggerated. It is that, beneath the poetry, archaeology uncovered a city whose destruction echoes across history. Sometimes, legends begin with truth. They simply grow larger with every generation that retells them.
History rarely survives untouched. Facts become stories, stories become legends, and legends sometimes preserve truths that history alone cannot remember. The Trojan War was never just about heroes or a wooden horse. It was about memory, about how civilizations remember conflict long after those who fought it are gone. The case of the Trojan War is no longer closed by myth. It remains open through evidence. Another mystery investigated. Another legend re-examined. Another case closed.